thing about trading Forex is that you don't actually know exactly which trade is going to be a crazy winner or just another loss.
What's up, everybody? We are currently live.
We'll take away the weekly.
Trace back down to the order block because that price was going to be bullish.
Point sort of chasing the market. I was more than happy to stay flat.
Hello everyone.
With the King Repel.
Always recommend trading on the 5 minute.
Some of these exotic pairs, pretty steady uptrend, making these higher highs and higher.
Mostly trend following.
The stimulus in a certain way.
All right. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everybody tuning in. Welcome to another market analysis video. Thank you to the A1 Trading team for having me on today. Today, guys, I'm just going to go over a couple of pairs that I've really been watching for the past week, and some things that I'm looking at going into next week. Okay, so I'll jump right into it. The very first one that I'm looking at is US oil. All right, so currently I have US oil popped up on the weekly time frame because if you guys know me by now, I do like to take a look at some of these higher time frames and get that bird's eye view of the market. All right, so what I've done is just highlight a couple of key levels of institutional resistance, some places that it's likely price might return to, or if it's approaching, that might be some key areas of interest in terms of executing some sort of opportunity or executing some sort of position there. All right, so I'm just going to zoom in on price here. Overall, you see that price looks bearish off of this higher time frame where we're making lower lows and lower highs. But if we just zoom in on price again, just take a quick close inspection at price, you can see that, you know, in the most recent of times, we have been pretty bullish, right? We've been making this steady move to the upside, but we're quickly approaching a key level of resistance, right, off of the weekly. So quite a bit of information that I was able to gather off of the weekly, but let's come down to some of the smaller time frames, and that will reveal some more price action, some more patterns and candlesticks that might be potential signals as to where price might be headed next. All right. Let me come over to the 4-hour. So again, sort of what was reflected off of the weekly, in the most recent of times, we have been making a steady move to the upside. What I'll do now is just go ahead and mark this key level of, let's see, resistance turn support that I see. So right in this region where we had a break and retest scenario. And you can see right above that, I highlighted that yellow horizontal line where is the next region of major weekly resistance that I see price not having any issues approaching, given that we have been in a strong uptrend in the most recent of times, which is influencing that bias. So I definitely do see oil making a move back to the upside. It'll be interesting to see how it reacts at that major level of resistance. So definitely a bullish bias, but I would like to see how price will react once it gets to that zone. All right. Another thing I want to mention is that I don't usually trade very much on Fridays. This is mainly just my weekly outlook going into next week. All right. All right, let's come over to USD ZAR. I like to look at a couple of these exotic pairs, USD ZAR being one of my favorite ones, actually. So I'll pop up back on the weekly time frame and come over to USD ZAR. All right, so what a lot of these exotic pairs have been showing, including USD ZAR, still on this weekly time frame is this steady move to the upside, right? We've been in pretty strong uptrends, but in the most recent of times, we have been bearish and approaching some levels of major support. So you can see this zone that I have highlighted in yellow. We actually came to a pretty respectable region of support, and now we've bounced right off of it. But it is important to note that we have been pretty bearish in the most recent of times. All right, so again, let me come down to a smaller time frame and take a closer inspection at price. All right, so right off the bat, you see this this downtrend is more pronounced on the 4-hour time frame, where we're making lower lows and lower highs. And I see that trend. I see that trend continuing. It seems as though we do want to make a return back to the downside, at least maybe one more time to potentially retest this yellow zone that I have, which I identified as a major level of support off of the weekly time frame. All right, so you can see that price, it had a little spike to the upside, but it's still respecting the lower lows and lower highs that it's been making in the most recent of times. So let's see if we can get some sort of opportunity back to this support level next week. All right. All right, moving over to the S&P 500, right? I want to cover all flavors of instruments that are able to be traded. So some of the major currencies, exotics, and now let's go ahead and take a look at some indices. All right. So once again, I do have the weekly time frame popped up. Clearly, this is an uptrend that we've been in for a while now. And even if we zoom in, that also reflects the trend as well, right? So I usually, determine the trend off of these higher time frames like the weekly and the daily, and that tends to dictate my bias in terms of what opportunities I look for on some of the smaller time frames, because a lot of these trends are well established, and you can think of it as kind of going with the flow or the current of price, and that's the way I look at it. All right, so zooming in on price again, let's actually come to the 1 hour. You see a break and retest scenario here. Didn't quite get the retest I was looking for, actually. You can sort of see it start to dip. But after that move, it continued moving or pushing to the upside. All right, so let me actually come to the 30-minute. Definitely a bullish bias here on S&P 500. I would definitely, going into next week, being that I am more so of a break and retest trader, and then I pair up some other confluences with that, I would like to see if maybe we could bounce back to that region of resistance and retest it as support before we continue pushing up to the upside. But from a swing trading standpoint, definitely continuing to have this bullish bias, given that we've been in a pretty strong uptrend. And again, I do like to go with the current of price. All right. Let's come over to GBP USD. Let me come over to the weekly. All right, so this is a pair that I've been looking at for quite a while. You can see that if I zoom out on price, GBP USD does look bearish, where we're making lower lows and lower highs. And again, these higher time frames dictate some of the opportunities that I look for in the market. One thing I want to also point out is the fact that after coming to this region of major resistance, you can see that we are respecting it pretty well. And if I come over to the 4 hour, let me actually move this up a little bit so you can see this consolidation box, right? So I was watching GBP USD kind of pinball back and forth within this consolidation box. You can see that, sort of manipulative spike outside of the zone, but no significant closures, no retest outside of that zone. We dipped right back into it, and then we eventually made a move to the downside, right? So what it looks like to me here is, yes, we've respected this level of resistance up here that we identified off of the weekly, and we're starting to produce some bearish market structure. But I would like to see some more significant levels of support broken to confirm that bias, right? To me, it's still, premature as to where price might be headed next. I am leaning more towards a bearish bias just because of what I saw off of the weekly, and the fact that we still were making lower lows and lower highs, and there's a significant candle closure that respected that resistance. But as a swing trader, it's still a little premature for me to make a decision. I would like to see maybe even some sort of break of this level here, coupled with a retest before I feel more comfortable with a bearish bias. But to me, yeah, from a swing trading standpoint, I would just wait and see what happens on this pair. All right. Let me come over to, let's see, I have a couple of these GBP pairs highlighted. I think my overall outlook was pretty similar, but let me come over to GBP CAD. All right. And we can see what that's suggesting here. All right, so similar to GBP USD, on the higher time frames like the monthly, the weekly, these pairs look pretty bearish, lower lows and lower highs being made. Even in the most recent of times, if we kind of just take this chunk of price and data and history here, we've been in a downtrend in the most recent of times as well. But again, let me come down to a smaller time frame. Right, so yep, steady downtrend making lower lows and lower highs. It seems like we have some sort of bearish flag scenario where you have the impulse move and then bearish flag. And then now I'm looking for this pattern to complete itself, some sort of continuation, so a move to the downside. Another thing to notice is the fact that we've come back into this zone of support turned resistance, had a little bit of a spike above that. Looks a little manipulative to me, but you can see we're still respecting that zone, and we've started to push to the downside once again. All right, let me come to the 1 hour. So price, looks a little choppy here. I can go ahead and identify this level of resistance, support that we've broken and retested slightly as resistance. I would like to see if we can get some sort of return into this zone before a potential move back to the downside. GBP USD was also looking fairly bearish to me as well. So that's my overall outlook on the GBP pairs, or at least what I was seeing. All right. And this actually looks pretty nice on the weekly time frame. I'm not sure if I zoomed out on GBP CAD already. Let me kind of get rid of that annotation to make it more clearly, but you can see that this is the weekly candle, and it seems as though with the markets closing today, the candle will close fairly bearish, making a bearish engulfing candlestick off the weekly time frame. So that's definitely something to note, given that it's forming off the weekly, and these patterns that you see, they take more time to form. They're more well established. So to me, you can sort of use them as a better guide, rather than maybe the patterns that you see off of the 5 minute or the 15 minute. so on and so forth. And, just taking a quick check or a quick, minor back test, you can see all the regions where we did make a bearish engulfing candlestick that led to further bearish movement. So pretty nice indication of what might be happening next on GBP CAD. All right. Let's switch over to some of the cryptos. Let's take a look at Bitcoin. All right. Coming over to the monthly, you can see, after that huge impulsive move to the upside in early 2021 and kind of, towards the end of 2020, you can see that now we're starting to retrace, right? The past couple of months, we've been fairly bearish on Bitcoin. All right, so just getting a bird's eye view of the market, let's come down and take a closer inspection at price. All right, so again, you can see the daily reflects that huge impulsive move. And now we're sort of having a shift in market structure. Instead of making those higher highs and higher lows, we're struggling to continue doing that. And it seems as though we may start to be making lower lows and lower highs, reversing that dominant trend that we were seeing on Bitcoin. Another thing I wanted to point out was one of these textbook patterns that I identified off the daily, right? So we have the left shoulder here, the head, and the right shoulder that's forming here, right? So patterns are not a huge, integral part of my strategy, but when I do see them off of these higher, well-established timeframes, I definitely like to point them out as just extra pieces of confluences to build up a story of why I might want to enter the market, right? So this head and shoulder is an indication that we may continue to see further bearish movement. I would love to see if we can break this resistance level here on Bitcoin, right? Get some sort of break and retest scenario, right? So for the time being, I do have a bearish bias on Bitcoin. I'm not so much of a margin trader on cryptos. I tend to hold and buy long term, but definitely some continuation of bearish momentum is what I'm expecting off of this technical analysis. All right, so those were the major pairs that I was looking at going into this week. What I'll do now is leave the floor open. If there's any pairs that you guys want me to take a look at, definitely feel free to drop it in the chat and we can take a look together. All right. All right, so I see Mark Adair says that he's shorting NZD USD based off the fibs. So we can go ahead and take a look at that one as well. All right, the fib is an excellent tool. It's also something that I use as extra pieces of confluences to confirm any movements that I'm seeing in the market. All right. So just popped up the weekly time frame. In the most recent of times, you can see that price action is fairly bearish, right? So high, low, lower high, lower low, so on and so forth, right? So just identifying the dominant trend off of this higher time frame, okay? And what I've done now is just mark up some key levels of support and resistance that price has been bouncing back and forth between. All right. So right now you can see that we're kind of just sitting on this level of resistance turn support. We actually had some pretty decent movement or sort of a bounce off of that zone. So let's go ahead and zoom in and see what's happening. All right. So just as some of the higher time frames suggested, we reached one level of resistance here, respected it pretty well, and it seems like we're continuing this bearish movement to the downside. Let's see. I definitely see some fib levels probably being touched. Let me actually pull out my fib. Let's see if we take it from this swing high to the swing low. You can see we're within that 618, 786 region, depending on how you draw your fibs. I also like the fact that we're in a zone of supply, or we're retesting a region where we have an order block, right? So an order block is one of those concepts that I've also implemented into my strategy. I would like to see how price action develops in this zone. If, you know, off the 30-minute time frame, we can get some sort of bearish engulfing candlestick, or like a minor ascending channel break and retest scenario out of that to confirm that bearish bias that me and Mark have. But I also have that bearish bias on NZD/USD as well, with these lower lows and lower highs being made off the lower time frames, even the higher time frames. And so we have that as a trend on our side. All right. Let's take a quick look at silver. I don't think I've touched any metals yet, so yeah, we can go ahead and take a look at that. Let me zoom out to the weekly. All right, so what I have marked on silver is this impulsive move to the upside, and now we've kind of come to a halt where we're really struggling to break that level of resistance and continue that upside movement. All right. So looks like we're forming sort of like a triple top here. We keep coming to this region, but we're just not able to crack above it. All right. So what I see potentially commencing is some range movement, similar to that consolidation box that I had drawn up on GBP USD. We might enter that phase on gold, right? Unless we finally get some break out of that zone, maybe some retest scenario, and then a continuation to the upside. But I'm more so of, wait for the break, wait for the reaction rather than this range trading. So personally, I would be on the sidelines just based off of my own strategy and how I approach the markets on silver. Since we're on silver, we can go ahead and take a look at gold as well. All right, coming off the weekly, you see that we are, bearish, making higher highs and higher lows. Looking at the daily, we had this bullish flag scenario, right? So we're making this steady channel, eventually broke out of it, and now it seems like we're retesting the channel for potentially, just based off of the dominant trend, continuation back to the upside. All right. So gold, it did break below this level of support, retesting it as resistance that I have drawn up here. So again, I would wait for some break above that level, coupled with a retest of that line. Or if we do continue this bearish movement, let's see if we can get a break here and some retest scenario as well. All right, so let me kind of draw out my zones and show you guys what I'm looking for as potential scenarios. Something like this, or something like this. All right. So not the consolidation box that we're sort of seeing on silver, but still waiting for some sort of break and retest scenario here on gold. All right. Let's see. Let's see. So I see GBP, JPY. All right, let's take a look at GBP, JPY. Okay. Very, very, very similar to GBP USD in that although we were making a steady move to the upside, we've kind of come to a halt at this level of resistance off the daily, off the weekly. That's where I'm seeing it most apparent. All right, we're respecting the level pretty nicely. But again, I would like to see some major break and retest scenario as a swing trader, right? So I focus on the 4 hour, the daily, and the 1 hour. All right. I see that we came back and had a spike near this region. I'm really just waiting for some break and retest of a key level of resistance or support, and that reflects my bias on a lot of these GBP pairs. All right. Okay, let's see. I see Euro CHF. Let's see. Euro CHF is an interesting one, right? So I have the weekly time frame popped up. Clearly, you see a steady downtrend, lower lows and lower highs. And we can take this piece of Euro CHF to sort of identify what's been going on in the most recent of times, which is a downtrend. But one thing I do want to point out is the fact that we're respecting this level of resistance turns support. And not only that, but we sort of have an inverted head and shoulders forming off of the weekly. So the big question is this downtrend on Euro CHF done? And are we going to have some sort of shift back to the upside? All right. So if I pull out my head and shoulders tool just to make this more apparent, you see this left shoulder, head, and then what looks to be this right shoulder forming. All right. So just quick top-down analysis. Weekly time frame does show a downtrend, but some patterns are suggesting that we may get a shift in momentum back to the upside. All right. So again, here's this level of resistance turn support that I identified off the weekly and also shows up pretty well on the daily. Bearish flag forming. So I would like to see some sort of break and retest scenario out of this bearish flag to confirm, hey, we do want to have a continuation to the upside. And not only a break, but maybe break above this level to say, hey, I know I've been in a downtrend, but I'm breaking back above these previous highs and establishing myself as support now. All right, so that's really what I would like to see on Euro CHF, more so on the sidelines right now. All right. All right. So I did cover oil previously on the stream. This stream will be recorded, so feel free to refer back to an earlier part of this video when the recording drops. All right. What time is scalping on? Scalping is largely done on the smaller time frames, such as the 1 minute, 5 minute, 15 minute. I'm not a scalper myself. I'm more so of a swing trader. So that's why you see me mainly sitting on the 4-hour, daily, 1 hour charts and time frames of that sort. All right. If anybody has any last minute pairs that they want to take a look at, we can go ahead and do that and wrap this session up in a second. All right, so I see someone just dropped USD CAD in the chat. So let me go ahead and take a look at that as well. All right, so USD CAD, top-down analysis, bird's eye view. You guys know I like to start out with these higher time frames. You can see that price has been fairly bearish if we just hone in on this region of the chart, right? So in the most recent of times, lower lows and lower highs being made. Again, I do like to go with the flow of price, but we can't ignore this level of major support that we are respecting, right? Every time we've come into this zone, we've respected that level pretty well here, here, and once again here. All right. So a little bit of top-down analysis. Let me zoom onto the 4-hour. Again, the 4-hour shows this nice downtrend pretty well, right? Lower lows and lower highs. Also like this break and retest scenario over here. And at least in the most recent of times, or what price is suggesting to me, is a potential move to that level of major support. All right. I like the fact that we came into this order block region and we respected it and wicked it and continued that movement back to the downside. So definitely a bearish bias going into next week on USD CAD. Again, I don't really execute on Fridays. This is rather just an outlook going into next week. All right, gold has also been covered. That will be in the recording. I'll take a look at AUD CAD, Euro USD, and then we can wrap this up for the day. All right, coming over to Euro USD. All right, so Euro USD off the weekly time frame looks fairly bearish. We had a move to the upside over here, but now it looks as though we're losing that momentum and we potentially want to continue with the dominant trend of steady moves to the downside, making lower lows and lower highs. Another thing that stands out to me off the weekly is this head and shoulders pattern again. All right, so left shoulder, head, and right shoulder, just further suggesting that we may be losing that momentum to the upside. All right. Coming over to the 4-hour, again, you see that head and shoulders pattern. In the most recent of times, steady downtrend, right? Since May 2021, the 25th. I would like to see how price reacts in this region here, as this is one of those order block regions, right? Some of those institutional supply and demand zones that I look for. So if price can make a spike into that region, I would drop down to a smaller time frame and see what sort of price action is developing that would suggest further downside movement. So Similar to GBP USD, Euro USD, I also have a bearish bias. I saw somebody mentioned AUD CAD, so we can go ahead and take a look at that one as well. AUD CAD looks bearish to me. Again, if we kind of just take this piece of recent data, it has been in a downtrend. And even the overall trend off the weekly, if I just zoom out, shows some bearish market structure as well. But we can't ignore the fact that price is respecting this level of support very well. All right. So in order to execute any sort of short position, which is the bias I'm sort of building a story for just off some of the other confluences and trends that I'm seeing, I would need to see a break and retest scenario here of this support line. All right. And I believe my outlook on USD CAD was also bearish as well. All right, so with that, I'll go ahead and conclude this session. Thank you guys for tuning in, and I will check back with you guys next week. Peace.
Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to today's stream. I hope you enjoyed that. Make sure to follow today's guest, by the way, on social media, and don't forget to subscribe to A1 Trading here on YouTube for more market coverage, trade ideas, and special guests. Our streams are made possible thanks to our sponsors, all of which can be found down below in the description. If you're looking for a new broker, consider checking out the links down below. We've partnered with a few brokers that we think you should check out. By signing up with one of these brokers, our company will receive a small affiliate commission, which does help us stay here on the air creating free stuff for you guys. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see you back in the next one.